Hello, the next step I would like to talk about is fasting and blending. Now, we spoke about both of these a little in the previous section about diet, but I want to get a little bit more involved and explain the difference between fasting and blending and why they're both so important when somebody's dealing with inflammatory bowel disease. Now, when you're in a flare-up, it's definitely important and helpful to fast to one degree or another. Even when you're not in a flare-up, it's a good idea to fast or just eat blended food every now and then, so you're not overtaxing the system and you're making sure that your body's not working harder than it needs to work, which can cause a flare because it creates extra stress, more stress than your body needs. Now, with fasting, when we hear the word fasting, it actually means to fast means to do nothing at all. That's what the definition of the word fast means. But the common idea of the word fast today either means a water fast or a juice fast. So that's the way when people hear fast what they think. So really there's three types of fast. There's fasting for its true definition, which would be like a dry fast, meaning I'm drinking no water, no liquids, no food, nothing. Then there's a water fast, which technically isn't a fast, it's like a water diet, meaning I'm just consuming water and nothing else. And then there's a juice fast, which is a juice diet. It's different than blended, it's juice, and it means I'm just consuming juice and nothing else. And then finally we have blended foods, which is different than a juice diet because you're actually keeping the fiber in, where juicing separates the fiber. So a blended diet is more like a liquefied diet than a fast. So first let's talk about dry fasting. It's very popular in Russia, and people have been using it with success for many, many years. What it does is actually dry the whole system out. So even things like mucus, it'll help issues like this because the liquid actually sometimes feeds that and helps that to grow and multiply. But if you're going to dry fast, it's the quickest way for the body to actually heal. But in certain situations, if the body is already dehydrated, it might not be the best thing to do. So if you're interested or you're going to do a dry fast, I definitely recommend you find somebody who has experience with it. In the section on this website of people to contact, there is a fellow, Dr. Koifman. He's a Russian doctor and he's in Atlanta and he has a center out there. If you want to learn more about dry fasting, I recommend you contact him. He has a lot of good information about it. Now, not all people, in my opinion, but most people that are in an inflammatory flare would benefit greatly from doing a 24-hour dry fast. Nothing, no juice, no water, or anything. Now, of course, your first concern might be, I'm already underweight. I'm just going to lose more weight if I do that. Well, if you're burning calories by running around and you're doing that, that's not the way to do it. If you're laying in bed, relaxing, and not taking in any liquids or any solid food or any juices or anything, and do a dry fast for 24 hours, I can see this only helping most people with inflammatory bowel disease, especially in a flare. Now, why I say most people and not all people, again, if you're doing this the right way, you'll know if you're dehydrated or you're malnourished to the point of where it would be dangerous to do something like a dry fast. But again, for most people, don't even get to that point. But there are some people that neglected the vital signs of their body for so long, and they might even be already past that point. So a dry fast might not be best for them. So in essence, I'm saying a dry fast is a great thing to do for most people, and you have to know if you fall in that category of most people. You're automatically going to think you don't because you've been sick for a while and you think I'm already malnourished, you think I'm already underweight. No, thinking isn't going to do it and feeling isn't going to do it. If you go to somebody with experience, they can monitor your blood work, they could talk to you and understand if you're truly in a dangerous state or if you're in a state where, hey, you just lost a lot of weight because you have inflammatory bowel disease flare-up, or because you're malnourished, because you're not eating the right foods, not necessarily not enough food, and so on. But that's something you definitely want to consider is a 24-hour dry fast. And I'd recommend contacting Dr. Koifman or somebody like that to find more about that. Now, again, if you're doing a dry fast, if you take a shower or if you sit in a bathtub, you're still getting water in your body. So a dry fast would be eliminating all of that. for 24 hours. That might seem crazy to the average person. And well, you're not the average person. You have an illness, and the body can heal that illness if you give it the rest it needs to do so. Now, what I would recommend most people do, and a little bit safer, would be a water fast, meaning for 24 hours ceasing from all food and all liquids and just doing water. And it's a little bit more safer because if somebody's already dehydrated, it's not going to make it worse as a dry fast would. So I would recommend a water fast in a situation with all the benefits of a dry fast, but just a little bit safer to do for 24 hours. And you might think it's difficult to go 24 hours, but you have to think of this. If you go get up at 8 o'clock in the morning, and let's say you eat at 8 o'clock in the morning, and let's say you go the whole day and the whole night with no food, and then the next day you go 8 o'clock in the morning, so you've still eaten every day, you've just went 24 hours without that. Even better would be 36 hours, meaning you go the whole day with nothing, and then you wake up the next day and you have your first meal. So 36 hours of water would be the best way to go. Now, if you're in a flare, you're going to see the biggest improvement in your health if you do a 36-hour water fast. Now, some people that are afraid to do it, and I still would recommend if you're going to go beyond 36 hours to get supervision, but if you're not going to go beyond 36 hours, I think it would be safe for the majority of the people watching this. Now, if you think I'm malnourished and I don't have enough energy and it's not going to be good for me, first of all, if you have that thinking, you probably haven't gotten the idea and the understanding of the natural cure and also inflammation and how the body works. So I recommend, if you didn't already, you go back and you review some of the videos we already spoke about. But if you are in that case, and something that everyone can do safely would be a juice fast. Now, with a juice fast, you want to get a good juicer and a good strainer. So most people think the juicer is a strainer. No, the juice will separate the majority of the pulp from the liquid, but not all of it. And it also depends on the quality of the juice you have. But then if you pour that juice through a strainer and then put a cup under that strainer, now you're getting the juice with absolutely no pulp at all. And the reason why that's important is it's very important to rest your body when you have inflammatory bowel disease. But if you feel you need those nutrients, and many people do need those nutrients, you could still get them from the juice while eliminating the pulp, which will sometimes create a broom, and is very good, that fiber, to sweep the system clean, but not always when you're in an inflammatory bowel flare. So juicing would be great. Now, for a flare-up, the water fast, the dry fast, and the juicing are wonderful, and for a flare. Now, if you're not in a flare-up, it's still going to be wonderful to do either one of those three things once a week. That would be a great idea once a week to do that. And it gives the body a chance to rest, a chance to catch up, and a chance to heal. The big problem we have today is people eat too much, not too little. So I think that's a good thing to do. Now, another thing we want to look at is blended food. Blended food is, like I said earlier, it's liquefied food. It's not really a juice. And what happens is we don't chew our food well enough when we chew our food, because we should chew our food so it's actually liquefied. But as you could tell by looking at your stool, whether you're in a flare or not in a flare, we don't chew our food enough. And it's certainly not liquefied, and it makes it harder for the digestive tract to digest that food properly if it's not chewed correctly. So what we want to make sure we do is that we blend our food often before we consume it. And for example, if you're going to eat, let's say, an apple, well, if you blend that apple up, it's going to digest much better, whereas if you ate the whole apple and you didn't chew it well enough. The same thing goes with pretty much just about all our food. This is why babies actually blend their food. It helps them digest the food much easier than if they had to eat it, because babies don't know how to chew. Well, we're all like babies when we eat to a degree. So not blending all our food. If we're not in a flare, it's not necessary to blend all our food. If we're in a flare, I recommend blending our food, and that would be the best way to go. But if you're not in a flare, blending your food sometimes, juicing sometimes, and sometimes eating whole foods. But it's very important when you eat whole foods that you chew your food very well. So these are steps that people often say, well, I'm healthy and I eat healthy, but I still got inflammatory bowel disease, or I still get a flare. Well, we think we're healthy until we hear things like I just said, which we really didn't know. And then when we start incorporating those, we start realizing, well, maybe I wasn't as healthy as I thought I was, or wasn't as eating as healthy as I thought I was. So it's something to consider. So I hope these tips, you'll put them to use, because I know they will work and they will help improve your condition. If you have any comments or questions, post them below the video. I'll do my best to answer them, and I'm praying for your successful, quick recovery. But even if it's not quick, remember, you're working in the right direction towards getting better.